All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling in from. We have a really great crowd for this talk, and really pleased to have a very special guest. I think, Chung, you and we go way back. I remember visiting and eating at a Korean barbecue place with you there that one place must have been 8, 9 years ago, but just so proud of all the work that EIM Singapore has been doing. And, recently over the past year, they've released a textbook, and it's actually their second textbook. And I just thought it was really timely to bring that forward to everybody and just share this really unique enterprise that the EIM Singapore has gone through. And I haven't seen it anywhere else in the global network. So I thought it'd be really timely to bring this forward to everyone, to share it and answer questions. Maybe it'll spur a whole bunch of different efforts around the world. So with that very brief introduction, I want to turn it over to Chung Sien from EIM Singapore. And we're looking forward to hearing about this. So please go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Hi, I'm Chung Sien. Thanks for the invitation, and glad to be able to share. I'll spend about 30 minutes talking about this development of our EIM Singapore textbook. The goal perhaps is to kind of like provide some useful information for those EIM nations that may be interested in writing their own version of it for their respective countries. So without further ado, I'll just share the screen. Yeah, so I hope everybody can see my screen. So I'm just going to bring up the PowerPoint. I'm going to move in and out of the PowerPoint because I have some things to share on the web as well. So so we'll start about 30 minutes just to give you a bit of brief introduction about our EIM book. Then perhaps we can have a more discussion for the remainder of the session. A bit about background. I'm actually doing education and training for EIM Singapore. I've been doing it for the last 10 years as part of the initiative to build up the training of physicians and fitness professionals in Singapore. So without wasting too much time, just show you the product. This is the book cover of our two versions. So on the left, we have the first version, which was launched sometime in 2015. And I think just a few months ago, we launched the second edition. All right, so maybe just a bit of a rationale why we wanted to do this. So I'll move out the Zoom and I'll just go to the website. And if you come to EIM Singapore website, all right, hope everybody can see it. Then you notice that actually we've been running EIM courses for the last 10 years. All right, so generally we have two big groups of courses that we conduct. One is for the doctors, and one is for the fitness professionals. So this is the landing page for the primary care physician course. So we've been running it for the last 10 years, and generally we run it like about once every 2 months. And when we first started this initiative, right, we found that there was not many local resources that we could refer on for so-called course content development. So along the way, we started with like handouts, printouts. Then this was back in 2012. Then along the way, we kind of like say, hey, as physicians, right, when we attend courses like BCLS, ACLS courses, typically they have some resource and a textbook. So we thought it would be good to kind of like develop our own content based on the local setting, so we make it more relevant for our students, our physicians and fitness professionals to refer to when they have issues with exercise prescription. So the course actually covers the bolts and nuts of exercise prescription and common chronic diseases. So this is the one for the doctors, and I think if I go to the one, there's also one for the fitness professionals also. So this is the one. It's the one that we run as well for trainers, nurses, physiotherapists, etc. So they are slightly different because we pitch them according to their relevance. All right, so going back to my PowerPoint. Yeah, so I think we started with this. Then along the way, I think as with more updates, right? Then we kind of like had to do a new edition. So how do we get started, right? So basically, I'll just share you the initial steps. It may not work for every country, but at least in Singapore, right? We kind of like, okay, once we started to realize that we need to do this, right? I think the first thing that we wanted to do is to see, do we have a budget for this? I think the key thing is setting aside budget. I think for EIM Singapore, we were quite fortunate that when we started, we were given sponsorship money. So we had like maybe about 100 grand to start off with, all right, from our kind global sponsors, all right. So those days, I think it was given through the local sponsorship. So we had some money. And I think the main thing was that if we wanted to drive the initiative, right, we had to form a core team that will see the project through. And this includes the people involved in the training as well as the project managers, because it's one thing to develop content, it's another thing together to publish it in the form of a book. So I'll just run through some of the key things that went through our mind when we were developing content, sourcing for our publishers, and publishing itself or publishing the book itself. All right, so this applies for both the versions. I think the first version was a bit more challenging because we didn't have much to work with. So the editors, I think so we had 3 co-editors. I think the lead editor being Dr. Ben Tan, who is the chair of EIM Singapore. He himself has actually published 2 textbooks, one on running and one on weight loss. So he kind of like gave us some starting point on how we wanted to go about doing this. So then, of course, we started small. We had a group of contributors, and these are the people who were with us at the beginning. Now, of course, content-wise, right, I think we looked at all the things that will mirror what we teach in the courses. So it's meant to be a companion to the EIM training course. So we had all this, I think they are quite common topics. So basically, the essentials of exercise prescription, exercise in chronic diseases. We also thought that we built in some access in terms of like resource for injuries, mental health, and exercise in disability, pregnancy, and children, which we later on expanded on the version 2. Right, so these are just some of the common topics. So in terms of content development, right, I think I'll just share you how we went about developing the content. I think a lot of it was farmed out to contributors. So essentially we were using like Google Drive, so we were like having all these things, all these chapters. So we're trying to collect. So we distributed the different topics to different subject matter experts, and we got them to draft the first version, and we kind of like edited it along the way. So maybe if I show you a draft version of it. So this is like the first version, the very first draft that we had. And yeah, so it's about 200 over pages. And so there lies the tough job of editing and revising all the content. So this is the gist of it. All right, so this is the draft. And after we collected all the materials, right, then we kind of like painstakingly edited some of these and did some revision. All right, and we went back to looking for a publisher. So in terms of looking for a publisher, we kind of like, I think this is quite common, the knowledge of like how to publish a book. So I think these are just some of the common steps that we took, how to choose the publishing route, which company that we were going to look to engage. Then these are all the steps. So I'll run through briefly some of the steps these are the overview of all the steps. So in terms of sourcing for a publisher, right, we first have to create a job spec for what we wanted. So I'll share you a sample document. All right, so going out again. So if you look at a sample job scope that we kind of like, so we had to draft it. So we had to decide what we want. So like the kind of book, is it a physical book? Is it an e-book? The sizing, the pages, the content, the number of copies that we're going to print, and whether it was e-book ready at some point. And these are all the job scopes that we prepared. So we kind of like look for, being a public institution, right? We look out for open tender. So we had like three companies that we were looking at. And these are just some of the specs that we wanted in terms of timeline and action. So of course, eventually we did sign with one of the publisher. And this is the kind of like the contract that we signed. I'm still surprised I still have it. It's dated February 2015, really long time. And yeah, a lot of it was centered around copyright. All right, so I think we had a lot of clauses. I'm not expert in this law thing, but then I think essentially we wanted to keep the copyright within the EIM and our institution. So we kind of like put a lot of emphasis on the copyright materials, so how we had the rights to it at the end, so that in the event we shift publisher, we still hold the rights to the material and the book content. So this thing is really quite long, and so it goes on and on until so there's also the cost to it. So I'll just share you within the walls of the Zoom, right? I think we kind of like paid about 30 grand, including tax. All right, and yeah, once we had this sign and out of the way, right? Then actually this is the most difficult step, sourcing for the publisher, getting them to agree to some of our terms. And once you have done that, right, then it was easy to move on. All right. So moving on, what we did was to edit the manuscripts, design the content. I'll just share you some of the hard work that we did off office hours. We all hold day jobs, so being physicians, busy people, we still have to spend some time overnight looking at all these things, looking at all the various edits, So I'll just share you some of the manual labor that we did. Check here, check there, proofread, a bit of ding-donging here with the authors, and a lot of these illustrations also were copyrighted, so we had to kind of like get some of our friends to help us draw, kind of like recreate some of the images, because these are some challenges. At the end, we managed to do it because we had friends who were able to help us with illustrations at no cost. So that was really helpful. Then of course, after getting the initial draft, right, we wanted to get feedback from the other editors and the critic circle. So fortunately, we had an advisory board made out of various specialists. So this is back then. I think now it's expanded. So we have specialists from cardiology, endocrine, and rehab, So all the various topics that we wrote, right, the chapters, right, we had it kind of like proofread, and vetted by our advisory board. So again, that took some time to kind of like, fine tune, because as with guidelines, there are quite a different set of guidelines that you look at. And some of the materials need a bit of tweaking to contextualize within the setting of Singapore practice guidelines. So that took a few weeks. But to collate this itself is a challenge, because we were all working on different timelines. So format and design, I think, as we see, we went for A4 kind of size, because we felt that it was easy to read, and it was mostly like most textbooks would carry the A4 size. And we thought that suited this project well. I think as far as easy reading, the only problem with that, with the bigger size book, we had to print more pages, and that with more pages, right, there's more cost to it. All right, so this is the second version, and this second version actually had more chapters, more pages. So I think at the end, I think the cost to it for this second version was almost 54,000 Sing dollars. So it jumped up from maybe we factor in inflation and post-COVID, etc., right? I think, yeah, so that was a big jump. So naturally, the book price also went up after that. So in terms of format and design, yeah, so this is the final one that we decided for the book cover. But we had photo shoots, so there are different iterations of it. So this is some photos to show that what it could have been in terms of the book cover. And we had photo shoots and all that. So we got our EIM ambassadors to come and chip in as models. Some of the people in the photos are our own doctors, our own trainers. So essentially, we're trying to save costs by having our own people be part of the book illustrations. All right. For the second book, right, these are the new updates. I think right after we launched it, I think there are some changes to the screening guidelines, and there's some changes to the physical activity guidelines as well. And after COVID, right, I think some of the topics such as exercise in COVID, post-COVID, became more and more relevant. So we had to include more of these topics for the version 2. So these are just some additions that we had for version 2, right? So these are just some of these are the rest of the editors. Okay, I'm just one of them, and I've been tasked to share this with with you all. Unfortunately, Dr. Ben and Dr. Ivy is not here to join us today. I think Dr. Ben is in Hawaii. I think he's in Hawaii for a conference. I think, yeah. So, and Dr. Ivy just came back from Asian Games in Hangzhou, so I think they won't be able to join us today. And for the second version, we had more contributors because there were more topics, right? So we essentially had contributors that wrote various topics, and essentially some of the topics were written by ourselves. Some of the subject matter expert, right? They wrote, for example, cardiology, rehab, renal disease. So some of these things we had more contributors essentially. So a lot more contributors for the second version. So the other important thing about books is the timing of book launch. All right. So one of the things that we did was really to kind of like time it for an EIM related or sports medicine related event in Singapore, so that it can create some publicity and media. All right. So for the edition 1, we actually launched it during the EIM Southeast Asia meeting in June 2015. I think Mark, you were there. Yeah, you were here. And yeah, so that was the version 1. I think I was so much slimmer then. Yeah, of course, this one was the version 2 of the launch, where we launched it on our 20th anniversary of our Sports Medicine Center. This is just like a couple of months ago. So in terms of sales and cost, right, I think I mentioned it a bit, but I think our initial print of version 1 was about 1,005 copies. I think that pretty much sold out. And that's one of the reasons why we decided to push for a second version, because we didn't want to print the old version in that anymore. So we tried to match such that by the time we finish the sales of version 1, then just nice we're able to sell the version 2, the edition 2 of the book. So I think with the publisher, right, we agreed that each run, right, they will print 1,005 copies. I think the first book sold for about 30 odd Sing dollars. Second version, I think it sells for about 60 Sing dollars because of all this inflation and extra book pages and illustration. So yeah, I think generally the book sales is tied to our cost. So when someone signs up for the course, the book is part of the course material, is costed inside. So in that sense, there is ongoing sales, but the book can also be purchased outside of the course for those who are interested. All right. So yeah, with that, I think I kind of like just end the sharing here, and of course, I hope that it's been useful, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Right. Great, quick summary and overview. And just to let everyone know, one of the things I ask our speakers is to give a brief overview of the topic, because I really want this to be conversational. So I'm going to start a first question to get us rolling, but I hope everyone take down some notes, and we want to hear, how we can how this could be usable for you. So Chung, my question is this. So you mentioned the first version cost almost 100,000 Singaporean dollars, which is I think around 80,000 US dollars right now. So it's quite a big expense for national centers that may not have the funds. How much funding?
I mentioned that I think 100,000 was the initial sponsorship money that we received, but the actual cost of the book was about publishing was about 27,000.
27. Okay.
27. Yeah, 27,000.
And does that include, like I see the photography. I don't see you in any photos. I see the other people from Singapore in the photos, but not. Were you in any of those photos, first of all, Chung?
I think for the first version, because we were editors, we kind of like make a conscious decision not to appear in any of those photos. We kind of like, okay, let's do our job. Let's just be editors and not be featured in any of the photos. Yeah, because we had a bunch of young models, young doctors who were very willing. So yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, those things usually bring in additional costs, like the cost to do photographers. Like, did you hire in photographers? What were the other things that cost? Because I know, right off the bat, the biggest thing everyone's going to be thinking about is how can we afford to do this? Can you speak a little bit more about how to make it affordable, steps you took along that route?
Okay, so in terms of timeline, right, what happened is we started the training courses in somewhere in about 2012, and the book only came out in 2015. I think as part of the EIM initiative, we had to keep ourselves sustainable. So the main bulk of our sustainability came from running courses. So by the time we were like close to 3 years into running the courses, right, we built up some amount that we felt we could invest in the textbook. So that was one way. Yeah, and we were quite prudent with our expenses. So other than some travels to the ACSM, then we didn't really use much of the reserve and what was given to us. So I think the main driver was probably the courses, running the courses. Yeah. So that helped defray quite a lot of the costs. Yeah. Then of course, for the photographer, I think we kind of like source like through some contacts, with not much. So we wanted to keep it to a 1-day shoot, so we don't have to add additional days of shooting. So everything is like planned out, packed, and we really decided what we want to shoot and what we want to do. So it's 5 hours, everybody goes there, everybody turns up, then shoot. Then we had some EIM ambassadors that were patients of ours who led a very healthy lifestyle. So they agreed to do it without cost because they're more than happy to just feature in the book and feature in I think, so we got some of these photos through our ambassadors as well as models. So that helped us save quite a lot of costs. Yeah.
Awesome. And if anyone has a question, you can write it in the comment box or come off mute and feel free to ask.
Hi, I'm Siva. Hi,
Hi,
Dr. Ani.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Yeah,
good,
he's
thanks.
from my hometown in Port Klang, actually, but now he's in Singapore. But I just want to ask you a question. Were the contributors paid?
No. Yeah, kind of like we asked anyone would be interested. So we went to the subject matter, and I think the main thing was that they knew that EIM was not a non-profit organization. So I mean, like doctors or contributors, once they know you're doing a good thing, something to share, and they naturally, there's no charge for these. So we already made it upfront, and most were very willing and didn't really ask this. Oh, well done. I'm happy to contribute. Yeah. So
That's exactly what we are doing in EIMM Malaysia. The few of us who are working in EIM Malaysia are totally voluntary. But I mean, this is because of our passion to get this thing going. And I'm glad, and I commend Singapore for having brought out this textbook. And I think I have the first copy, was given to me free by Ben some time ago. But I'm glad, and I really appreciate EIMM Singapore bringing out the second edition. Kudos.
yeah, one of the concerns that we had when we wrote the book was that because a lot of this information, right, was based off ACSM and EIM Global. So we wanted to be sure that that the materials that we are using, like for example, some of the screening protocol, the diagram, we didn't infringe on any of the issues on the copyright with ACSM. So that one we had to verify. Sometimes we have to modify a bit to avoid like totally lifting off from some of the books. So it's common knowledge, but we try to make it into a local context. So that was one concern that we had, because we were concerned that this book, right, the materials actually had some issues with copyright. So we clarified that. So I think up to now we are good, right, Mark? We are still good, right?
Yeah, no, Chung, I'll commend you guys, because this is what EIM Global's here for, and they would reach out and say, hey, we want to use this image from an ACSM textbook, and we would then help connect them to the right people. And every step of the way, you all did a fabulous job, just communicating, working together. I think it was wonderful teamwork. If you notice in the textbook, Chung showed a picture of a introduction from Bob Salas. We facilitated that. So I mean, our role was like very, very small, but it was just a wonderful job of collaboration.
Yeah, so yeah, maybe I just show you the Bob's forward. I think we had the forward by Bob Salas, Dr. Bob Salas. If I can, yeah, somewhere here.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
over here. Yeah, so so we even got EIM Vice President, I think, Robin, right, to help with the second book as well. Yep.
Well, Chung, I have one point and then a question. And my point first is for Dr. Siva. When Robin redid the EIM, or built the EIM credential training course, which is for exercise professionals, and she did that in the year 2022. We did exactly what Chung described. Is we had content area experts help write the different components of the course. And literally throughout the entire process, I'd say we had over 100 contributors, ACSM members. And each member had a very small part, 30 minutes or an hour, 2 hours of work that they could easily do and contribute to the larger effort. And she coordinated 100 people doing this. So I do think there's people that are looking to get involved, to put things on their CV, to contribute to positive good. Just like Chung, you said, you had a lot of partners that were looking to do this in a positive way to help a good cause. My question, Chung, relates to that, because I watched when Robin did this, the project management aspect is tremendously large. It's a lot of work coordinating this. And so I'm imagining it was the same with your textbook. Can you speak to how you as a team handled the project management, the photos, the shoots, the different content experts, all those different things?
Yeah, so this is where I think I relate to my first slide, where we had editors, right? Then we had project managers, people like Livia, and if you recall, Miss Ivy Ng, she was the biggest, she was the central to everything, so she was helping with all the coordination, meeting up with the publisher, setting up timelines and charts for us to keep to the schedule. So I think, yeah, I think essentially for this project to go through, right, we definitely need somebody like a project manager, EIM executive, right, or EIM manager, right, that can really see this through and make sure that it's everything is clockwork. Because most of the time we were running clinics and all that, we were external heads. So yeah, we definitely need somebody to anchor this as a starting point. So that brings everybody together, correspondence, timelines, content creation, vetting, So definitely, I have to give credit to, but Ivy unfortunately has left us. She's gone to France for a better life, I think. So yeah, so I was actually invited her to join, but she couldn't make it as well. So definitely, for those who are looking to do this, right, I think, yeah, you definitely need somebody to anchor this, almost quite close to full time, because she runs the courses. Ivy runs the courses, Ivy runs the scheduling for the teaching faculty, and she helps coordinate with all this training materials, not just the book, but the classroom, the certificates, the exam papers, the marking and all that. So it's everything, So it's a big portfolio. Yeah. And
Yeah,
not to
Dr. Ng,
mention,
if
sorry?
I'm not mistaken, Ivy was a paid managerial staff. Am I right?
She's full-time with us. So is I think Livia is here as well. Livia is Livia is actually is here also. She's doing the same thing as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I run the courses as well, kind of full-time, but because we work for the sports and exercise medicine department, we have other things to do, like plan a staff retreat, so then so there are other like hospital strategic trust that we have to try and deliver aside from doing EIMS on the side.
Yeah, I think
But the
maybe
photographer wise, actually the publisher was also hired to handle the photographer part, because they were the same publisher for the first edition textbook, and therefore the contract includes the photographer part as well. Yeah.
So may I know, is the copyright belongs to the professor or belongs to the Changi Hospital or the EIM Singapore? Who owns the copyright for your textbook?
Yeah, because EIM Singapore, right? When it first started, it was housed under Changi Hospital, the hospital that we work in. So most of the signing, the signatory things, right? It's through Changi. So I show you again so everything. If I may share screen again, it's through Changi. So it's actually most of even the signature is under Changi. So with the publisher and all that. So it depends on how EIM is set up in each country. Some it's housed under Sports Medicine Association, some with the universities, some with the hospitals, right? So in our context, right, EIM is housed under Sports Medicine Department in this Changi Hospital, and it's the biggest Sports Medicine Department in Singapore. So that's why there's a lot of cross cover with other things, but essentially the answer to your question, Stanley, is it's under CGH. Yeah. Under CGH means Changi General Hospital.
I see, thank you.
Yeah, Prof. Mark, yeah. Although I'm not considered full-time with EIMS, but because the courses is something we do believe in, and so we will run the course, but we do have like certain ground rules for deciding whether to run a course, because sometimes if a class doesn't have like at least 13 participants or people who are interested to sign up, we will just postpone the course, and we will keep them on the interest list. So we try, we have other things to do, but we do still want to not disappoint those who have been on the wait list to attend the course for a long time and stuff. Yeah. So it's an ongoing thing that we always have to come back to as a day job. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Olivia, my point there was that very few of our EIM national centers have paid staff. So almost everyone on this call is volunteer. So it's just thinking through the logistics, and I'm thinking in Dr. Siva's mind and others, and it's like, how could we possibly do this without full-time staff? Well, in essence, EIM Singapore did it through a volunteer effort, people working on the fringes or kind of like, Chung still works as a full-time clinician. You still work full-time for a sports medicine center. So I do want to try and give the impression that this is something that's doable, but I think it was really a labor of love for you all, and a lot of people providing a lot of volunteer effort outside of your work hours, correct?
Yeah, but the fund that we have been drawing from a long time is from the global sponsor is actually Coca-Cola. So without the fund, the big amount that we had to start everything up, we wouldn't be running until now actually, because the hospital gave us this IO number, which is just a number that they will charge everything that we claim from. Like for example, when we run courses, we also have to provide tea breaks. And in fact, the book, the second edition book cost nearly 50,000 to produce. Yeah, so actually the very big amount of fund that we had in the many years ago is like drawing down quite quickly lah. Yeah. So, but in the meantime, right, I guess we are still trying to keep afloat. Like when we run courses, we just pretty much have to provide feed the course participants. Then the book comes with it, so we'll mail the book out in advance. So the logistic is like quite how to say, once you done it once, then you will just like repeat it, and it doesn't take that much time. It's just, yeah, you have to have a little bit of money to tide through like in terms of running courses. Yeah.
Well, and Chung and Livia, do you sell this book outside of your courses? I know the participants get it as part of their fee for the course, but is there a website? Is there somewhere where people can go to buy this?
Yes. So on our website, we do have a landing page that says that we have published this second edition, so you can email to this address to get a copy from us. But because we don't really actively market this book, aside from it being part of the course, so far this year we only had about maybe I think it was like maybe 10, was it 10 people who bought it? Yeah, less than 20 people bought it like separately without using it for the course. They just wanted it as a reference material. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm just sharing the website. So if you go to EIM Singapore website under menu, right? I'm trying to sell my book actually. So yeah,
in our
then you will come
Facebook,
to
we also advertise
price prescription guide, and this is where you can. Yeah, but within the EIM fraternity, right? What we have done is that if you will like be interested in developing your own book, we were happy to share some of these resources for you to adapt to your local setting. Yeah, I think in the past, I think Dr. Siva, I think when Malaysia was looking at the book itself, I think Dr. Eamon, we did share some materials and we did pass them some chapters for them to look and see whether they could adapt to the EIM Malaysia. I think we've done that in the past. So naturally, Singapore, we these are not just ours. I think if you wanted to kind of like do your own book, we're happy to share some of these content. These are common content, and we're more than happy to help. I think the challenge, of course, is to have it in different languages, besides English. So those need a bit more of a translation and help. But I think in terms of if you wanted to do something like that, we're more than happy to be of help. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, we are here simply because of Singapore, because you all started off with us, and lots of your material we borrowed, and as we went along, we adapted most of those things. And as we went hybrid, we started to write a little bit on our own, and always we had cross-referenced with Singapore, because you are our parents, and basically you have more experience than us, and we will love to, I will put this forward to our team. We have Prof. Sharif in the University of Malaya, who I think was thinking of writing something like this as an e-book rather than as a published book. But I don't know if he has started or if he's on the way. So I'll get it across to him.
Actually, EIM Philippines would like to thank EIM Singapore, because in 2013, when EIM Philippines started, we based our training manual. Of course, we asked permission from EIM Singapore if we can use not only as a reference, but a direct source, EIM Singapore's training manual. We contextualized some of the information, such as some data that were available to us at that time. And we came out with our training manual really based on EIM Singapore's training manual. So that got us going for quite some time until I think we had more than 5 seminars. With this help us tide us over, both for physicians as well as for fitness professionals. We just have to get going once again. That's why it was a little bit delayed, our getting back after the pandemic.
Yeah, so thanks.
Thank you, EIM Singapore.
Yeah, most welcome. Actually, yeah, so I think you mentioned the thing that during pandemic when there was not much, right? That was where we focused a lot on writing. So during the pandemic when there was like a lot of lockdown, right? All we could do was so we spent a lot of time writing and editing. So we could do those things remotely. Yeah. So having said that, right? Yeah, for us, our challenge was also always to keep updated. Because every now and then, ACSM comes up with a new edition of the exercise guidance. So we are always on the lookout for some of these updates, and so as to also our own national practice guidelines. So we try to always merge. So a lot of the conversations is with ACSM and also our Ministry of Health, so we can see how best we can still keep current with the practice guidelines in relation to your country of practice. So that's the most important thing, that yeah, it has to be contextualized to, especially when you're training doctors, right? It has to be in accordance to the Ministry of Health's guidance as well. So we always see what is the latest and what, for example, let's talk about hypertension, right? I think in America, the cutoffs are slightly different than what we are practicing in Singapore. I think we are still using the 140/90, I think. So that's why when we come up with exercise guidance on what are the pressures to be careful of and all that, and what are the cutoffs, right? Then we got to adapt from like what we have in ACSM to what we have in Singapore and change that. So I think that applies a lot when we are doing this book as well, because we want to keep it contextualized within the country of practice. So yeah, every country also should be the same, I think, because not every country, every region is different. Yeah, so that was our challenge. Yeah, these are just some examples. As to the question of, I think Mark posed a question about medical students. So one of the things that we have evolved from the training, right, for the last 10 years is that now we are moving into medical schools. So we are starting to do the exercise module in the top 3 medical schools in Singapore. There are 3 medical schools in Singapore, so we have started to incorporate exercise teaching in during the 3rd and 4th year of the medical school. Yeah, but the textbook has not been made a resource yet. We're still using parts of it, slides, handouts. But then I think going forward, that could be a good resource for the students eventually. Yeah. So this year itself, I think we have started to teach in 2 or 3 medical schools. So hopefully that will take off. Then we're also trying to create some teaching specifically for the nurses. I think in terms of nursing, right, I think it's quite relevant for like things like physical activity counseling, healthy lifestyle changes. I think a lot of the, not just the fitness trainers, but in the clinic setting, because the doctors are busy, we felt that if we could train the nurses to be able to provide this, would be also very good. So I think what's coming in 2024, at least for Singapore, we are developing a exercise prescription and counseling specific for the nursing professionals. So that one is it's slated for 2024. So that will be another new thing altogether. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I have maybe perhaps one last question then, Chung. Just maybe as we wrap up here, what would be your advice to these other national centers? That they do training courses. I know Philippines is doing training courses. You heard Dr. Siva is doing that. Hong Kong does it. Dominican Republic does it. I think this is a brilliant idea. I actually think you probably have a lot more room to market it because EIM Singapore has become the brand in Singapore. So I think you have a lot of opportunity if you wanted to sell this more broadly. But for the other national centers that are wanting to get started, what would be your recommendation on how they can make this happen?
At least from what we see from the direction moving forward, right? We feel that in order to ramp up the training numbers, right? I think the trend now is to go like hybrid, means no longer everything face to face. So the next step is to kind of like have some platform where you can upload some teaching materials online, then maybe turn up for a short half a day for the face-to-face. So that's what we are intending to do going forward. So that itself has some challenges to secure the learning platform and all that. There's some cost and some development to it. So if that happens, right, then a lot of the learning materials can be uploaded into the platform itself. So you don't really need a textbook per se. Everything is online, and you just come for some face-to-face, some case studies and some practical sessions, right? So at the end of the day, the notion that you need a textbook to attend the course may be evolving. So in that sense, right, if there's some constraints on cost and manpower to develop a book, then the other option, of course, is to go that direction in terms of hybrid, and you can get all your stuff online, all the materials, whatever, slides, handouts, or printouts that you develop. Because those days when we started, we didn't have it. We had to print it out physically, put in a folder, and hand it out to the students. Now the trend is like that, and I think it makes sense because if you really want to train up large numbers in a very short time, and that would be the direction. So that's where we are also thinking for the future. So we are also in discussion we actually have a grant to develop such a learning platform, and it may be the case that a lot of these materials are just going to be uploaded online, and the students can at their own leisure access it before or after or even during the course. So that's one option. Now, if really, you see, even without the textbook, it can be done, the courses can be done. So it's a matter of like printing out some relevant handouts, giving the slides in advance. I mean, you can still go that direction. It still works. So these are some options we can think of. The other thing, of course, is when we don't have to aim for a comprehensive textbook, something that it's good enough to be a course companion will help to lower the cost and also make it work. So these are some options. Because our book, when we wrote it, we deliberately built in access. So we built in chapters, injuries, and all that, pregnancy, children. So we deliberately, so that in the case that we needed to upgrade or change the advanced course for teaching in the future, those materials are already in the book. So like I say, there are a few options here you can kind of like tweak depending on the resource that you have.
Yeah. If I can share, actually in Malaysia, we went hybrid 2 years ago. And it's sad, you know why? Because when we went hybrid, lots of doctors didn't want to join. They want a face-to-face. Because post-COVID, we were rather cautious. And during COVID, we prepared the whole, our training program completely hybrid. And it was a 6 weeks online completely. And at the end of the 6 weeks, they sit for a simple test and we certify them. But unfortunately, it was not taken well. I don't know what the reason was, but then we thought we have to have a face-to-face as well. So now we have 6 weeks online and 1 day face-to-face. So that has been taken up a little bit more than the pure online stuff. I don't know whether it is cultural or whether it is just that they didn't feel that they should pay for something online. But you know, this is our experience in Malaysia. When we went online completely, we had difficulty getting people to come to attend the course. Then when we said that it was hybrid, they said okay. Then we slowly started having the numbers. Of course, we are unlike Singapore. Here, Singapore is full. I mean, you have got rather your image is well established in Singapore amongst your professionals, trainers, etc. But here we are still going on. We just had a meeting with the Minister of Health for the first time last week. For the first time. And she was surprised that we were there. But you know, to get a meeting with a politician is not that easy. Whereas in Singapore, you have your deputy minister attending your meetings. You know, and I was told Aiman attended the meeting in Japan, and one of your deputy ministers and somebody from the sports council has also come along. So that's the support that you have, and that's what we are trying to get in Malaysia. You know, trying to engage the important people to come in and notice us, and then we are not so much interested in the fun per se, but the visuality is very important, especially amongst the politicians and the sports people. Our Olympic Council actually just dropped us like that. You know, after Coca-Cola left, Olympic Council say goodbye to us because there was a new management and they had different priorities. So we had to start our own society and then start with all these things. But this is our experience, but we'll not give up. No, and we are learning
Thank
from
you.
Singapore.
Right. Well, I think we're all learning from Singapore, and Chung and Livia, thank you so much for taking your time and putting this together. You know, it's interesting, Chung, with your last point there, just to summarize, maybe we do a webinar on textbooks, and the takeaway message is you might not need a textbook anymore, right?
You can translate it in online,
I think-
so a lot of things can be online. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting, and it's a great point. But I think I really like that there's a lot of different options moving forward. And you know, Dr. Siva, I agree with you. EIM Singapore is definitely built a lot of support, but it wasn't always like this. And we watched from 2010 onwards as they spent year after year slowly building help, just as you are, and I hope as everyone in the network is. So Chung, Livia, thank you so much for spending your time. Thank everybody here for joining this webinar. I hope it was helpful to everyone. And with that, I think we'll conclude this session, okay?
Thank you,
Mark.
everybody. For
You.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.